The silence in the house didn't just feel empty. It felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing against my chest as I stood in the entryway. I've spent 21 years mastering the art of being invisible, but I never thought my own family would take it this literally. I'm Nate. In the chaotic cinematic universe of my family, I'm the extra who doesn't even get a credit in the subtitles. I'm the middle child, the human equivalent of beige wallpaper. While my older brother, Jake, was out there being the golden child, and my younger sister, Lily, was the miracle baby, I was just there. I was the kid who got the good grades so mom wouldn't have to stress, the one who did the dishes so dad wouldn't have to sigh, and the one who faded into the background so everyone else could shine. Growing up, I convinced myself that being the easy kid was a badge of honor. I told myself that by not demanding attention, I was helping. But on the evening of my 21st birthday, standing in a dark kitchen, the truth hit me like a cold splash of water. In this house, if you don't make noise, you don't exist. I remember Jake's 21st like it was a national holiday. The backyard looked like a freaking Coachella set. I spent an entire week sweating under the sun, mowing the lawn until it was golf course perfect, and stringing up fairy lights until my fingers were raw. Mom went into full event planner mode, flying in his frat brothers and renting a stage for a live band. Dad, who usually counts every penny, didn't blink when he handed Jake the keys to a brand new Jeep with a literal red bow on the hood. "You earned this, champ," Mom had said, beaming, conveniently forgetting that Jake had almost failed out of his marketing program 3 months prior. I didn't want a Jeep. I didn't even want a band. I just wanted to feel like I mattered for one day. I had carried that hope around for 3 years, protecting it like a flickering candle in a storm. The morning of my 21st, I woke up with a knot of nervous excitement in my stomach. It was a Thursday. I went to my morning classes, checking my phone every 10 minutes. Nothing. No happy birthday texts from the family group chat. No what time are you coming home for dinner? From Mom. By noon, the silence was deafening, so I threw out a line. "Hey guys, turning 21 today. Hope everyone's doing okay," I typed, my thumbs hovering over the send button. I tried to sound casual, like I wasn't begging for a crumb of recognition. Lily, the princess of the household, replied 10 minutes later, "Happy birthday." No exclamation point. No cake emoji. Just 2 words that felt like a chore she was checking off a list. Jake didn't even bother to reply, probably too busy living his golden boy life. And Mom? She left it on read. That little timestamp was a gut punch. Walking into the dark house that evening, I still tried to play the mental gymnastic. Maybe they're hiding in the living room? Maybe they're taking me out to a surprise dinner? I walked into the kitchen and flipped the light. The only sound was the low, rhythmic hum of the refrigerator. No balloons. No 21 banners. No smell of a home-cooked meal. I opened the fridge, my heart sinking into my shoes. There, sitting on the middle shelf, was a plastic container from the local grocery store. Inside was a half-eaten sheet cake, the kind with the stiff, overly sweet frosting that's been sitting out too long. The edges were starting to crust over. Tucked under the corner of the container was a wrinkled scrap of paper. I recognized Mom's hurried scrawl immediately. "Sorry, money's tight. Love, Mom." That was it. No name. No happy birthday, Nate. Just a generic apology for a lack of effort and a reminder that I wasn't worth the budget. My mind flashed back to the thousands of dollars spent on Jake's legendary 21st, and the designer bags Lily gets just for passing a math quiz. Money wasn't tight. The supply of love for the middle child was just exhausted. I stood there staring at that sad, dry piece of cake. From upstairs, I could hear the muffled sound of Lily giggling on FaceTime, complaining to a friend about how her iPad charger was acting weird. She didn't even know I was home. She didn't care. I didn't cry. I think I was past that. Instead, I felt this strange, cold clarity wash over me. I realized that I had spent my entire life trying to be the good son, to earn a seat at a table where my place setting had been cleared years ago. I didn't touch the cake. I didn't even turn off the light. I just stood in the silence of my own life, realizing that if I wanted a celebration, I was going to have to build it myself, far away from the people who thought a scrap of paper was enough to cover 21 years of being forgotten. The kitchen light hummed with a clinical, flickering buzz that made the whole room feel sterile and cold. My mother was there, back turned to me, mechanically shoving organic produce and high-end artisanal breads into the refrigerator. When I cleared my throat, she jumped, nearly dropping a carton of eggs. "Oh hey, you're home," she said, her voice breezy and detached. She brushed a stray hair from her forehead with the back of a wrist, not even fully looking at me. "Long day." I stood in the doorway, my backpack still heavy on my shoulders, feeling like a ghost haunting my own kitchen. I nodded slowly, the words catching in my throat. "Yeah. It's my birthday." The silence that followed was heavy enough to choke on. She paused, her hand hovering over a drawer, and then a practiced, artificial smile spread across her face, the kind of look she usually reserved for neighbors she didn't particularly like. "Right. Of course. Happy birthday, sweetheart." I waited. My heart was thudding against my ribs, foolishly hoping for a surprise. Or a, "We're going to your favorite steakhouse in 20 minutes. I waited for the punchline that never came. "I thought we'd do something simple this year," she continued, turning back to the fridge as if she were discussing the weather. "You know, with everything going on financially." I blinked, a bitter taste rising in my mouth. "Financially?" I looked at the marble countertops, the brand new air fryer, and the bags of groceries that definitely didn't come from the discount aisle. "Okay. Like what?" She gave a vague, dismissive motion toward the counter. There, sitting on a dented, flimsy foil tray, was the ultimate insult. It was a chocolate sheet cake from the grocery store. The kind that's 90% sugar-lard frosting and 10% regret. But it wasn't even a whole cake. A jagged, messy chunk had been hacked out of the side, leaving crumbs scattered across the foil. It was a leftover, a literal afterthought. On top of the plastic lid sat a folded scrap of paper, jaggedly torn from the back of an old utility bill envelope. I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly. "Sorry, money's tight. Happy 21st. Love, Mom." No signature from Dad. No card. No, "We're proud of you." Just a blunt, lie-filled justification for why I didn't merit even $10 of effort. I stared at that note until the ink blurred. For 3 years, I'd been gaslighting myself, telling my brain that I was just being the sensitive middle child, or that I was being dramatic for feeling sidelined. But this was the smoking gun. This was a neon sign in the middle of our kitchen screaming that I was the lowest priority in the building. It was a calculated slap in the face. "I guess I was expecting a little more," I said finally. My voice was tighter than I wanted it to be, thin and strained like a wire about to snap. Mom let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a mean laugh, which almost made it worse. It was a laugh of genuine disbelief that I was actually complaining. "Oh, Nate, why are you always so dramatic?" Honestly, that was the exact moment the good son inside me died. It wasn't a loud death. There was no screaming, no sweeping the groceries off the counter in a cinematic fit of rage. It was a quiet, cold stillness, the kind of atmospheric shift you feel right before a massive storm break. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I was looking at a stranger who just happened to share my DNA. There was no guilt in her eyes, just annoyance that I was interrupting her evening. I didn't say another word. I turned on my heel, walked to my room, and pulled my duffel bag from under the bed. I moved with a mechanical precision I didn't know I possessed. Clothes, toothbrush, laptop, chargers. My hands stopped when I reached the framed photo on my nightstand. Me and Dad, back when I was 6, holding up a scrawny fish on a sun-drenched pier. It was the last trip we took before Jake's sports schedule became the family's North Star. I shoved it into the bag. On my way out, I stopped at the kitchen counter one last time. I pulled out my phone and snapped a high-definition photo of the crime scene. The mangled, half-eaten cake, the dismissive note, and the pile of expensive groceries sitting right next to it. Evidence. I stepped out into the humid night air, the heavy thud of the front door echoing behind me. I kept walking until the house was swallowed by the shadows of the trees, my lungs finally feeling like they could take in a full breath of air. I ended up at my best friend Cam's place. When he opened the door and saw me standing there with a duffel bag and a 1,000-yard stare, his face went from, "Hey man," to "Who do I need to hit?" in 3 seconds. "Dude, what happened?" I didn't speak. I just handed him my phone with the photo pulled up. Cam looked at it, then back at me, his face flushing with a genuine, protective fury that my own parents hadn't shown me in a decade. We sat on his porch for hours, the air sticky with late summer heat, drinking Gatorade in a heavy silence. Just before midnight, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dad. "Are you coming back?" I stared at the glowing screen. I thought about the "Nate, you're being dramatic" speech I'd surely get if I walked through that door. I thought about the years of being the background noise while Jake and Lily played the lead roles. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't type a single letter. Coming back to what? To a house where I'm a ghost? I didn't reply that night or the next. I spent the following days on Cam's couch, caught in a weird limbo between grief and a strange, terrifying freedom. Cam tried his best to distract me with a marathon of bad 80s action movies and endless rounds of FIFA, even offering to host a real 21st birthday party for me. "Just us, man. Beer, pizza, and people who actually like you," he'd said. But I couldn't do it. I wasn't in a celebratory mood. It wasn't just about the cake or the note anymore. It was the realization that my entire foundation was built on sand. I had finally seen the truth of my family's hierarchy, and once you see the golden child and the miracle baby soaking up all the light, you realize just how cold it is in the shade. 2 days later, another text arrived from Dad. "Hope you're safe. Let me know where you are. We should talk." Then, silence. I kept waiting for the inevitable fallout. I expected Mom to blow up my phone with guilt trips or for Lily to send a TikTok-style rant about how I was ruining the vibe of the house. But the silence just stretched on, proving the very point I was so desperate to disprove. They didn't even notice I was gone as much as they noticed the dishes weren't being done. The silence from my family was more than just a lack of noise. It was a loud, echoing confirmation of my standing in their world. I waited for the blowout. I expected a flurry of "Where the hell are you?" texts or at least a smug, condescending voicemail from Jake telling me to stop being a localized drama queen. But nothing came. Absolute radio silence. It was as if I had simply ceased to exist, and the household machinery just kept humming along without its quietest gear. I spent hours obsessing over the family group chat, watching that little typing bubble that never appeared for me. Instead, the feed was business as usual. On Saturday, Lily posted a high-def selfie showing off a fresh set of almond-shaped acrylic. The only response was a "So cute, baby." Nail polish sparkles from Mom. No one asked if I was eating. No one asked if I was safe. By the 5th day of living out of a duffel bag, reality started to bite. Cam's older brother was coming back to town and needed his couch, and I refused to be the pathetic charity case, lingering in a hallway. I wasn't about to crawl back to that kitchen, look at that crusty, half-eaten cake, and admit defeat. I called my cousin Miles. He's 24, a freelance video editor who lives in a studio apartment that smells perpetually of espresso and overpriced keyboard switches. We had drifted apart after high school, mostly because I was too busy being the perfect son, and he was busy building a life on his own terms. "Dude, say no more," Miles said the second I finished the sordid tale of the birthday note. "Get over here. I've got exactly 4 square feet of floor between my rendering rig and the Xbox. It's yours." Miles's place was cramped, chaotic, and absolutely perfect. It felt like a sovereign nation where the golden child laws didn't apply. He didn't hover or interrogate me. He just handed me a spare key and told me where the good ramen was hidden. To help pay my way, he started teaching me the ropes of his business, tightening up wedding montages, color grading YouTube thumbnails, and splicing short-form content. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just background noise. I was actually building something. I had a purpose that wasn't tied to making my mother's life easier or staying out of Jake's way. 2 weeks passed before the bubble burst. I was walking back from the corner store, a bag of chips in hand, when I saw it. My dad's silver sedan idling by the curb. He was leaning against the hood, his arms crossed over his chest. He looked gray, older, like the weight of maintaining the family facade was finally starting to crack his spine. I considered pulling a disappearing act, just ducking into a side alley and becoming a ghost again, but he caught my eye. "Nate," he said, straightening up. His voice sounded heavy, tired. I stopped 10 feet away, keeping the distance intentional. "How'd you find me, Dad?" "Miles's mom," he admitted, looking at his shoes. "I called her. She's worried about you, Nate." I let out a dry, hollow laugh. "Really? That's hilarious. Considering Mom has my number and hasn't used it once." He sighed, gesturing toward a nearby park bench. "Nate, come on. It's not like that. Let's just sit for a second." I stayed standing, my posture rigid. "Isn't it?" She laughed in my face, Dad. "On my 21st birthday. While I was looking at a piece of trash she called a cake. Did you even know what she gave me? Or were you too busy, working late, to notice your son turned into a legal adult?" His face tightened, a flicker of guilt crossing his features. "She told me she was keeping things small this year. I didn't know. I didn't know she didn't even get you a proper cake." "A proper cake?" I repeated, the anger finally bubbling over. It was a half-eaten mess from the back of the fridge with a sticky note on it. "Meanwhile, when Jake turned 21, you guys threw a festival. You bought him a Jeep. You flew in his fan club. Don't tell me it was about tight money. That was a different time, Nate. Things were." "No," I snapped, cutting him off. "It wasn't a different time. It's the same story it's always been. I'm the backup plan. I'm the kid who doesn't make noise, so you assume I don't have feelings. And now that I've finally walked away, suddenly everyone's worried? Where was this energy for the last 10 years when I was begging to be seen?" He had no rebuttal, no excuses left in the chamber. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a white envelope, holding it out like a peace offering. I hesitated, then snatched it. Inside was a check for $100. "What is this, Dad?" "An appearance fee. A birthday gift," he said softly. "I know it's late. I didn't want you to think we didn't care." I looked at the check. It felt like a bribe, like hush money designed to make the invisible kid go back into his corner. "I'm not coming back," I said, my voice dead calm. He nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that answer, then turned and walked back to his car without another word. I tucked the check into my notebook that night, a bitter souvenir of a life I was done living. If you don't want to miss more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed. Also, I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about this so far? Anyway, back to the story. But the universe wasn't done messing with me. 2 weeks later, Jake came back for fall break. I found out via a DM from Cam. "Yo, your brother's at Lily's favorite bar. He just bought 3 rounds for the entire patio. Looks like he's living his best life while you're MIA." But the universe wasn't done messing with me. 2 weeks later, Jake came back for fall break. I found out via a DM from Cam. "Yo, your brother's at Lily's favorite bar. He just bought 3 rounds for the entire patio. Looks like he's living his best life while you're MIA." But the universe wasn't done messing with me. 2 weeks later, Jake came back for fall break. I found out via a DM from Cam. "Yo, your brother's at Lily's favorite bar. He just bought 3 rounds for the entire patio. Looks like he's living his best life while you're MIA. I stared at the screen. Of course. The money is tight, narrative only applied to me. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a direct message on Instagram. It was Jake. Did you seriously ghost the family over a cake? Bro, grow up. You're being a literal child. I didn't reply. I wasn't going to feed the troll. But then, a second message popped up, dripping with that classic, manipulative, golden child energy. Mom's been a total wreck because of you. You could at least be a man and talk to her, instead of hiding at Miles's place like a coward. I looked at the message, then at the photo of the half-eaten cake still saved in my gallery. The wreck was likely just annoyed she had to do her own dishes. I realized then that they weren't sad I was gone, they were just mad they'd lost their favorite audience member. Would you like me to continue the story and write the next chapter of Nate's confrontation or his path to independence? Jake's message sat there on my screen, a digital toxic sludge of gaslighting and unearned superiority. You always make things harder than they have to be, he'd typed, as if my existence was a recurring technical glitch in his otherwise perfect life. It was the bro, chill, heard round the world, the classic move of a golden child who has never had to fight for a seat at the table because the table was built specifically for him. I felt a cold, jagged heat rise in my throat. He wanted to talk about being dramatic? He wanted to pretend I was the problem for having the audacity to be hurt? I reached into my duffel bag and pulled out that wrinkled, pathetic scrap of paper. I smoothed it out on Miles's coffee table, the creases looking like scars across the words, "Money's tight." I snapped a fresh photo, high-res, no flash, letting the bleakness of the jagged tear and the rushed ink speak for itself. I sent it to him with a simple caption, "Tell me again how this isn't messed up." Jake left me on read within 30 seconds. No defense, no apology, just the digital equivalent of a blank stare. The next morning, my phone screamed at me from the nightstand. It was Mom. I stared at the caller ID, my heart doing an anxious syncopation against my ribs. I didn't want to pick up. I knew the script by heart, but a morbid curiosity won out. I hit answer. "Hello?" There was a pregnant, sharp pause on the other end. Then, her voice came through, clipped and rehearsed, vibrating with a high-frequency irritation. "You embarrassed your brother, Nate." I blinked, genuinely stunned by the sheer audacity of the opening line. "Excuse me. Sending him that photo, that passive-aggressive little stunt," she hissed. "What exactly were you trying to prove? Do you have any idea how stressed Jake has been with his job hunt? He doesn't need your bitterness." "I was proving that I'm done pretending, Mom," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm done pretending that this family treats us all the same. I'm done being the ghost in the attic, while you guys throw parades for the sun god." "Oh, don't be ridiculous," she snapped, the sound of a kitchen cabinet slamming in the background. "You've always been so sensitive, Nate. Too sensitive for your own good. You never asked for anything, you never made a fuss. We just thought you were fine. We thought you didn't. You thought I didn't matter," I cut in. The words felt like lead. "That's what you thought. You mistook my peacekeeping for a lack of needs." The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. I waited. I actually waited for a "you're right, I'm sorry," or a "let's fix this." I waited for the mother I used to imagine lived inside her. But this wasn't a movie. "Well," she said, her voice turning ice cold, "if you're going to keep being this dramatic and ungrateful, maybe it's better you're not here. It's certainly quieter." Click. That was it. The final chord cut. Or so I thought. Because the true, pro-revenge style twist, the kind of thing that ends up on the front page of our /family drama, didn't happen until 2 weeks later. I was rendering a transition for one of Miles's wedding videos when my phone buzzed. It was a DM from Lily. You might want to see this. Sorry." Attached was a screenshot from the family Facebook page. Mom had posted it an hour prior. The caption was a novella of toxic positivity. "So proud of our eldest. celebrating Jake's huge job offer with a night to remember, making memories with the people who matter most. #family first, #blessed, #success. The photo was a gut punch. There they were in the living room, the same living room where I'd spent my birthday in the dark. It was decked out like a VIP lounge. Gold mylar balloons that spelled out, "Congrats Jake," hung from the mantel. Streamers everywhere. Jake was front and center, grinning like a shark and holding a bottle of high-end champagne that probably cost more than my rent. Lily was in the corner, looking visibly stiff and uncomfortable, the only one who seemed to realize the optics were horrific. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. It wasn't the party that broke me. It wasn't even the fact that money was tight for my 21st, but apparently, there was a surplus for Jake's. I got a job Tuesday. It was the dining room table. There, in the center, was a brand new, multi-layered chocolate cake. It was a masterpiece of professional baking, decorated with intricate swirls of bright blue frosting and "Proud of you, Jake" written in perfect calligraphy. But then I zoomed in, and my blood turned to liquid nitrogen. Shoved to the very edge of the table, sitting in its original, dented foil tray like a piece of hazardous waste, was the remains of my birthday cake. The same one, the half-eaten, crusting over grocery store mess from weeks ago. They hadn't even bothered to throw it out. They had just pushed it aside to make room for the real celebration. It was sitting right there in the frame, a rotting monument to my insignificance. That was the final boss of realizations. Not anger, not sadness, just a crystalline, razor-sharp clarity. They didn't just forget me, they considered my presence, and my absence, entirely inconsequential. I was the before picture in a world that only cared about the after. I sat on the floor of Miles's studio, the blue light of the monitor washing over me. For the first time in 21 years, I felt truly, fundamentally alone. And the weirdest part? It didn't feel like a tragedy. It felt like an exit. The weeks that followed weren't a cinematic montage of leveling up. There was no upbeat soundtrack. It was just a series of grueling, quiet mornings where the simple act of putting on socks felt like a victory. I'd walk to the corner gas station for a black coffee, counting my pennies, and stare at the city skyline. I'd spend 12 hours a day hunched over Miles's computer, splicing together other people's happy memories until my eyes twitched. The hardest part wasn't the lack of them. It was the realization of how little space I had occupied in their mind. I had moved out, gone NC, no contact, and stopped the good son routine, and the only thing they missed was the person who did the dishes. I wasn't a person to them, I was a utility. And once the utility was cut off, they just bought a new generator and kept the party going. I looked at the photo one last time before hitting delete on the whole family thread. I wasn't a background character anymore. I was just in a different movie now. One where the cake was actually whole, and my name was finally spelled correctly. The silence from the family group chat didn't just linger, it fossilized. I kept waiting for that one check-in text, the kind that normal families send when a member goes AWOL. I expected Mom to eventually crack and send a guilt-tripping, "Are you happy now?" Or for Lily to ask if I'd seen her lost charger, or for Jake to offer a half-baked, "Come home, bro, it's not that deep." But the fog never lifted. The chat remained a relentless broadcast of the Golden Duo show. Photos of Jake's sleek new office cubicle, snapshots of Lily's new ginger tabby, and endless boiled brunch boomerangs from Mom. Dad was a ghost in the machine, occasionally dropping a thumbs-up emoji like a programmed bot. My name wasn't mentioned once. It was as if they had collectively decided that if I wasn't there to be the household's emotional shock absorber, I simply didn't exist. Miles was the MVP during those dark weeks. He didn't offer empty platitudes, he offered hardware. He helped me clear out a corner of his gear-cluttered studio and let me build a modest workstation, a Frankenstein's monster of spare monitors and used cables. He taught me the hustle side of the creative world. How to SEO optimize my profile, how to pitch to prickly clients, and how to stop charging friend prices for professional-grade labor. I started grinding on Fiverr. At first, it was the digital equivalent of sweeping floors, cleaning up hiss in podcast audio, color-correcting shaky birthday footage. But every 5-star review felt like a brick in a new foundation. For the first time in 21 years, I wasn't performing a role written by my mother. I was the one holding the pen. Then came Claire. Claire was a lifestyle vlogger with a dedicated following of about 80,000. She wasn't a mega celebrity, but she had enough skin in the game to need a pro. She'd seen a breakdown I posted on a Reddit thread about non-linear editing shortcuts and reached out. "I love your eye," she told me during our first Zoom call. "It's cinematic, but it feels grounded. Real." She wanted me to lead the edit on her new weekly docu series. I agreed before she could even finish detailing the budget. Working with Claire was a culture shock. She actually listened to my creative input. She respected my out-of-office hours. She paid my invoices the hour they were sent. Within a month, her recommendations turned into a domino effect. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving on ramen and Spite. I was juggling 3 high-ticket clients. I was paying my half of the rent and buying groceries that didn't come from a clearance bin. It was a modest life of microwave burritos and gas station coffee, but it was mine. The growth wasn't just in my bank account. I started journaling, not the Dear Diary fluff, but raw, unfiltered brain dumps. I poured the birthday note onto the page. I wrote about the half-eaten cake and the gold balloons for Jake. I processed the visceral realization that I had spent my entire life making myself small so others could feel big. Reclaiming my voice felt like learning to breathe after being underwater for 2 decades. I realized I was allowed to be angry. I was allowed to be hurt. I was allowed to be the protagonist of my own damn life. One rainy Tuesday, 3 months after I'd walked out, I was scrolling through old notifications and found a hidden voicemail. It was from Dad, dated the day after our bench confrontation. I'd been too numb to listen to it then. My finger hovered over the play button, trembling, before I finally pressed it. The audio was grainy, filled with the hiss of wind. "Hey Nate, I don't know if you're even getting these. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't realize how bad things had gotten." There was a long, heavy pause where I could hear him swallow hard. "Your mother, she has a way of making everything seem fine, even when the house is on fire. That's not an excuse. I should have been paying attention. I should have seen you. Call me, please, whenever you're ready." I didn't call him. The wound was still too fresh, the scar tissue still forming. But for the first time, the burning resentment in my gut cooled into something else. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an acknowledgement. A tiny bridge had been built, even if I wasn't ready to cross it. Then, life threw another curveball. Miles had a friend named Rhea, a sharp-witted production assistant who worked on indie commercials and mid-budget film shoot. One night, while we were crushing pizza and heckling a trashy reality show, she asked about my work. When I told her about my freelance editing, she didn't just nod. "You've got a good eye for pacing," she said, gesturing to the monitor. "You should come to set next week. See the other side of the lens. We need a body to help with the grip and electric team." I laughed, the idea of Nate the background noise being on a professional set feeling absurd. But the following week, Rhea called in a favor and got me a day-rate gig. It was absolute beautiful chaos. The shouting, the heavy gear, the smell of gaffer tape and expensive espresso, the creative army moving in a frantic, synchronized dance to catch the perfect light. I spent 12 hours running errands and lugging C-stands, and I loved every second of it. Watching a shot come together on the monitor, I realized something profound. In this world, the world I chose, I wasn't invisible. I was an essential part of the machine. I wasn't the middle kid or the quiet one. I was the guy who made the shot possible. Months passed, and the boy who walked out of a dark kitchen on his 21st birthday started to feel like a character from a movie I'd seen a long time ago. I was no longer a ghost haunting a family that didn't want me. I was a man building a world that did. I turned 22 in that cramped studio apartment, surrounded by the smell of spicy pad thai and the sound of genuine laughter. Miles and a few guys from the freelance circuit didn't buy a billboard or rent a stage. They just showed up. They surprised me with a homemade chocolate cake. Moist, whole, and decorated with my name spelled correctly in lopsided neon green frosting. We sat on the floor and watched a corny video montage Miles had edited, full of inside jokes, failed screen recordings, and memes that only we found funny. No grandstanding, no money is tight excuses, just people who actually wanted to be in the room with me. It was the best birthday of my life because, for once, I wasn't an obligation. But just as I felt like I was finally outrunning the shadow of my past, the past decided to send a scout. It arrived in a pale blue envelope, the heavy cardstock practically screaming, expensive. The cursive was loopy and perfect, addressed to me in my mother's unmistakable hand. I tore it open on a Tuesday morning, while the sun was hitting the dust motes in the apartment. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Jake and Alexis. Jake. The golden boy was finally tethering himself to someone. I stared at the RSVP card, my brain short-circuiting. The ceremony was 6 weeks away, a black-tie backyard affair at the family home. At the bottom, a handwritten note in familiar blue ink. Can't wait to see you there. We miss you. I let out a sharp, barking laugh that made Miles jump. He looked up from his Chemex, brow furrowed. What's the joke, man? I held up the card like a trophy. The circus is back in town. And apparently, they want their favorite clown to make a guest appearance. Miles read it, winced, and handed it back. Dude, that's heavy. You actually going to show up to that dumpster fire? I didn't have an answer. I didn't owe them a single second of my time. That was the logical truth. But something about the invitation felt like a tactical maneuver. It didn't feel like an olive branch. It felt like they were trying to forcibly fold me back into their perfect family narrative. They wanted to hit the undo button on the last year without actually doing the work of an apology. They wanted the optics of the prodigal son returning just in time for the wedding photos. For the next week, I carried that RSVP card in my pocket like a cursed talisman. I'd pull it out at the bus stop or during rendering breaks, watching the edges get soft and crease. Why now? Was it because the extended family was starting to ask where the quiet one went? Or did Jake need me there to complete the aesthetic of his fairy tale life? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't want petty revenge. I didn't want to throw a drink or ruin the dress. I wanted something cleaner, something poetic. I wanted to hold up a mirror so bright and so clear that they couldn't help but see the wreckage they'd left behind. If they wanted me to be a background character in their play, they were in for a shock. I was done being the extra. I didn't tell Miles my plan. I just kept stacking my freelance checks, editing late into the night, and filling my notebook with puzzle pieces. I analyzed every memory of being minimized, every money is tight lie, every moment Jake was handed the world while I was handed the crumbs. The perfect opportunity hit me like a lightning bolt. The toast. Jake's weddings were never small affairs. My parents were go big or go home people when it came to social capital. Even a backyard ceremony would be a high-production event with at least 100 guests. Neighbors, business associates, the works. And I knew Jake. He'd want me to speak. Not because he cared about my words, but because me giving a toast was the ultimate proof of reconciliation. It would be his badge of honor, showing everyone that the family was whole and he was the big man who forgave his dramatic younger brother. He'd practically beg me to stand up there in front of the champagne-sipping crowd. He'd hand me the microphone, expecting a generic, teary-eyed speech about brotherly bonds and growing up together. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the RSVP card one last time. I checked the will attend box with a slow, deliberate stroke of the pen. If they wanted me to talk, I was going to give them the most honest speech of their lives. I wasn't walking into that backyard as a guest, and I wasn't walking in as a victim. I was walking in as a storm, and by the time I put the microphone down, no one in that audience would ever be able to look at my perfect family the same way again. I wasn't looking to be bitter, and I didn't want to be cruel. I just wanted the truth to finally have its day in court. But in a family that treated gaslighting like a competitive sport, my word wouldn't be enough. I needed receipts. I needed the kind of undeniable proof that makes people look away because the reflection is too damn bright. I spent 3 days straight in a digital deep dive. I scrolled through years of text threads with Mom, Jake, and even Lily. I took screenshots of every subtle dismissal, every ignored birthday wish, and every time they only messaged me because they needed a chore done or a favor handled. I pulled up that high-res photo from Jake's celebration and used my editing software to enhance the corner. There it was, my cursed, half-eaten grocery store cake, sitting in the background like a forgotten prop, time-stamped and undeniable. I grabbed the logs from my 21st birthday group chat. The lonely, "Hey guys, turning 21 today," followed by hours of digital silence from the people who were supposed to love me most. Then, I opened the work folder on my hard drive. When I first started freelancing, I developed a habit of recording calls with clients to ensure I didn't miss any technical specs or feedback. It was a professional safety net that had bled into my personal life. I realized with a jolt that I had the audio from my last call with Mom, the one where she told me it was better if I wasn't there. I had the tired, excuse-laden voicemail from Dad. I had Jake's arrogant DMs. I didn't plan on playing them like a DJ at the reception. That would be overkill. But having them felt like putting on a suit of vibranium armor. I knew that if I just stood up and talked about my pain, they'd paint me as the unstable, jealous middle child making a scene. I needed to pull back the curtain without ever raising my voice. To make this work, I needed an insider. I called Lily. We hadn't really spoken since the Great Exodus. It had been a few awkward, hope you're good messages and the occasional meme, but I'd always had a soft spot for her. She was the miracle baby, sure, but she hadn't asked for that crown. She was just a kid playing the hand she was dealt. And in that party photo, the one with Jake and his artisanal cake, she looked miserable. She looked like she was finally starting to smell the rot under the floorboards. She answered on the second ring. "Hello? Hey Lil. It's Nate." There was a long, heavy pause. "Oh wow. Hi Nate. Got a minute?" I asked, my heart hammering. "Sure. What's up?" I didn't dance around it. "I got Jake's wedding invite." Another pause, even longer this time. "Yeah," she said, her voice dropping to a cautious whisper. "I figured you might. Are you actually going?" "I'm thinking about it," I said. "But not just to clap and smile. I'm not planning some public meltdown, Lily. I'm not going to throw a drink. I just think it's time they finally hear the truth. Without the sugarcoating. Without the 'you're being dramatic' defense." Lily let out a long, shaky breath. "Good. Honestly? They need to hear it." That stopped me cold. "Wait, what?" "I'm older now, Nate," she said, and she sounded exhausted. "I see it now. I didn't get it when we were younger, but once you left, everything got so much clearer. They act like you just vanished into thin air, like you're the problem child who went rogue. But I started looking at the things they didn't say. The things they never did for you." I sat on the edge of my bed, stunned into silence. "Mom didn't even mention your name when the wedding planning started," Lily continued, the words tumbling out now. "Not once. I had to be the one to ask if you were even invited. I had to push for it." I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat feeling like a stone. "Wow. She just said, 'We'll see if he shows his face.' Like you were some villain in a movie," Lily scoffed. "Like we didn't all sit there with your sad, rotting cake still on the dining table while they threw a party for Jake." I pointed that out to her, Nate. I told her it was messed up. She just told me I was being disrespectful, and to drop it. That was the final green light. The last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "Lily, would you help me with something?" She was quiet for a beat. "Depends on what it is." "I'm not asking you to pick sides or blow up your life," I said firmly. "But if I do this, if I stand up there and tell the truth, I need someone else in that room to know it's real. Someone who lived in that house. Someone who saw the cake." Lily didn't hesitate this time. "Then I'm in." We talked for over an hour that night. We swapped stories like war veterans, comparing notes on memories we realized we'd both been told were fine. We realized the patterns were everywhere once you looked for them. The family trip to Disney? I was sent to a cheap summer camp for the experience. The luxury cruise? Nate needs to stay home and focus on finals. Every single one of Jake's senior photos had been a professional production. Mine had never even been scheduled. Even Lily started to see how she had been used as a shield to hide my neglect. The plan was set. I wasn't going to the wedding as a guest. I was going as the narrator of a story they had tried to delete. And with Lily by my side, I wasn't just a voice in the dark anymore. I was a witness. My mother's version of reality wasn't a memory. It was a curated script where my lines had been strategically redacted. After I hung up with Lily, I sat in the glow of my dual monitors and tried to write. The first draft was a radioactive vent of pure, unadulterated bile, too bitter. The second was a spineless retreat, too soft. The third was dripping with a sarcasm so thick it felt amateur. Eventually, I stopped typing. I grabbed my studio mic, killed the lights, and just started talking into the darkness while Miles crashed on the sofa nearby. I recorded myself over and over, refining the cadence until my voice was a scalpel, calm, precise, and unshakable. I didn't want a burn the house down moment. I wanted a let the house see itself in the mirror moment. By the time the wedding weekend rolled around, the truth was etched into my brain. The morning of the ceremony, I suited up in a costume of forced normalcy. I borrowed a pair of charcoal slacks from Miles and a crisp white shirt that was just a half size too large, making me feel smaller than I actually was. I knotted a black tie I hadn't touched since a gray uncle's funeral. Rhea worked some magic on my hair, trying to make me look like the successful, well-adjusted son they wanted to parade around. Miles offered to drive me, likely worried I'd bail at the last stoplight, but I refused. I needed to walk onto that battlefield alone, head held high, carrying the weight of my own existence. The family home looked hauntingly identical to the day I left. The white siding was blinding in the afternoon sun, the green shutters perfectly aligned, and the rose bushes, the ones I used to prune and weed while Jake was inside napping off a hangover, were in full, arrogant bloom. The backyard had been transformed into a high-budget Pinterest board. A massive white marquee tent with gauzy, wind-swept curtains dominated the lawn, and a professional champagne station was already buzzing near the patio. String lights were coiled like golden snakes through the trees, flickering to life as the sun began its slow descent. I stood at the edge of the grass for a heartbeat, breathing in the scent of expensive catering and old resentment. As I stepped onto the lawn, the atmosphere shifted. Heads turned. I saw aunts squinting to remember my name and cousins whispering behind flutes of You've Cliquot. Then I saw her. Mom was standing by the buffet, looking regal in a sapphire blue silk dress. Our eyes locked, and for a split second, her mask slipped, a flash of genuine shock, maybe even a hint of fear. Then, the hostess of the year programming kicked back in. She beamed a tight, porcelain smile. "Nathan," she called out, her voice a practiced melody. "You actually made it." I walked up with measured step. She pulled me into a hug that felt like being wrapped in dry parchment, stiff, hollow, and utterly devoid of warmth. "So glad you came," she whispered, before immediately pivoting to greet a local city councilman without waiting for my reply. I wasn't a son. I was a prop, an accessory to prove the family was whole for the social media tags. Lily found me 10 minutes later. She looked stunning but anxious, slipping me a folded cocktail napkin with a frantic scrawl. "He wants you to speak." "Mom's idea. You're up right after Dad." Of course. It was the ultimate power move. They wanted the performance of the year. The prodigal son returning to give his blessing, proving that any previous drama was just a misunderstanding. They wanted me to validate their neglect in front of 100 witnesses. The crowd began to migrate toward the mahogany podium near the tent. I reached into my jacket and felt the RSVP card, the ink smudged from my sweating palms but the words still screaming "money's tight." This was it. They thought I was going to play my part, offer a few platitudes, and fade back into the wallpaper. They forgot one crucial detail. I had spent a year learning how to edit out the noise. A heavy hush fell over the garden as Jake stepped up to the mic. He looked like $1,000,000 in a tailored tuxedo, grinning with the unearned confidence of a man who believed the sun rose specifically to tan his skin. He gave a cocky, charismatic toast, thanking the rents for the epic bash and winking at his bride. Then, right on cue, he flashed that high-gloss, all-American smile. "And now," Jake announced, his voice booming through the professional PA system, "a few words from someone very special, my brother, Nate." There was a polite ripple of applause, mixed with confused murmurs from guests who probably thought I was a distant cousin. I stepped onto the platform slowly. I gripped the sides of the podium, feeling the vibration of the mic. I took a slow breath and looked out at the sea of expensive fabric and expectant faces. "Hey everyone. I'm Nate," I said, letting the silence stretch just a second too long. "Jake's brother. The middle child. I see some of you looking around like, oh wow, there's a third one?" And honestly, that's kind of the whole story. A few people chuckled, a nervous, uncertain sound. I didn't look at Mom, who was already wearing a frozen, warning smile. I didn't look at Dad, who was staring at his shoes. I looked at Lily, who was standing perfectly still, her eyes locked on mine like a lifeline. "I could stand here and give the usual speech," I continued, my voice gaining a terrifying, calm steady. "I could talk about how honored I am to be here, how proud I am of my brother, and how perfect this family is. But if I did that, I'd be lying. And I think we've had enough lies in this backyard to last a lifetime." The ripple of movement in the crowd stopped instantly. The air went cold. "I want to tell you a different story tonight. A story that doesn't usually make it into wedding toast. It's a story about what it's actually like to grow up as the invisible kid. The kid who is praised for being low maintenance, which is really just a polite family code for easy to neglect. The kid whose 21st birthday was celebrated with a half-eaten grocery store cake and a note saying money is tight, while weeks later, this very lawn was covered in gold leaf for a job promotion." I heard a sharp, audible gasp from the front row. Mom's face went from pale to a ghostly, translucent white. Jake's grin didn't just fade, it curdled. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the RSVP card, holding it up so the light from the string lights caught the crumpled paper. "This is the script I was supposed to follow," I said, my voice echoing off the white tent. "But I'm not a background character anymore. And I'm not here to help you pretend. It's the kind of silence that doesn't just sit in the room, it suffocates," I said, my voice cutting through the humid evening air like a blade. "It's the experience of watching one sibling get the concert tickets, the car, the grand celebration, while your turn comes around and you're handed a crusty, leftover grocery store cake and a crumpled note that says, 'Money's tight.' Only to find out 2 weeks later that there was plenty of money, it was just earmarked for someone else's highlight reel." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the pale blue RSVP card, holding it high like a piece of evidence in a murder trial. "They sent me this a month ago. The first time I'd heard from my family in a year. No apology for the neglect. No explanation for the gaslighting. Just a formal invitation, as if we were all fine, as if the bridge wasn't already a pile of ash." The backyard, which minutes ago had been a buzzing hive of social climbers and happy guests, was now so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the bourbon glasses. Visible shifting in chairs followed, a ripple of pure, unadulterated awkwardness. I still hadn't looked at my mother. I didn't need to. I could feel her gaze burning holes into the back of my skull, a mix of fury and social humiliation. I came here today because I realized something, I continued, leaning into the mic. It is very easy to rewrite history when the quiet ones leave the room. I wanted to be here to make sure my story wasn't edited out for the sake of a blessed Facebook caption. I looked up then, locking eyes with Mom. Her mouth was slightly open, her perfectly applied lipstick looking like a wound against her pale skin. You told me I was being dramatic, Mom. You said it wasn't a big deal. You said I was making a scene just by existing with hurt feelings. I shifted my gaze to Dad, who was staring at the grass as if searching for an escape hatch. Dad, you said I should come back when I was ready to talk. I was ready. I've been ready for a decade. No one listened. Then, I turned to the man of the hour. Jake's smugness had evaporated, replaced by a raw, naked panic. And Jake, you laughed at me in my DMs. You told me I ghosted the family over a cake. But we both know it wasn't the cake. It was years of being second tier. It was watching you break every rule and still get rewarded with a new Jeep, watching you fail upward while I was expected to be the stable one who cleaned up the mess behind the scenes. Jake opened his mouth to interject, his face flushing a deep, angry crimson. I simply raised a hand, a gesture of absolute authority that shut him down instantly. But I'm not here for pity, I said, my voice dropping to a low, steady hum. I'm here for closure. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out a small, silver USB stick. This is a collection of receipts, screenshots, audio clips from our last conversation, and voicemail recordings. It's a documentary of what it's like to be the forgotten sibling. I was going to send it to everyone on the guest list tonight. I was going to let the whole world see the man behind the curtain. I paused, looking at the drive, then tucked it back into my jacket. But I realized I don't need to. If you don't believe me after this, you never will. And if you do believe me, well, you already know enough. I turned my attention to Alexis, the woman in the white dress who looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole. And to you, Alexis, we haven't spoken much, but I truly hope you see what you're marrying into. It's not just the man, it's the culture. It's the calculated silence. If you ever feel like your voice is being minimized, please, for your own sake, don't wait 10 years to stand up. Alexis was ghost pale. She didn't nod, she didn't blink. She just turned her head slowly to look at Jake, who looked like he was vibrating with rage. Thanks for the invite, I said, stepping back from the mic with a polite, terrifyingly calm smile. I'm going to head out now. I walked off the makeshift stage, my heart beating in a slow, triumphant rhythm. I walked down the aisle, past rows of stunned relatives and old neighbors who looked like they'd just witnessed a car crash in slow motion. I passed the gourmet buffet, the twinkling lights, and the DJ who had completely forgotten to play the next track. I didn't look back until I hit the sidewalk. Nate. Wait. It was Lily. She caught up to me at the edge of the property, her chest heaving as she grabbed my hand. That was incredible, she whispered, a fierce light in her eyes. Are they losing it? I asked. Losing it is an understatement, she said with a jagged little laugh. Mom's already in a full-blown hysterical crying jag. Jake is in a shouting match with Alexis near the cake table. Dad looks like he wants to dissolve into the floor. It's a total r/pro-revenge post come to life. I paused, looking at my sister. I'm sorry you're still stuck in that house, Lil. I'm not, she said, her voice firm. I'm leaving. I've been saving every cent from my part-time job. I just needed to see someone else survive the jump first. You gave me the push. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the same fire that had finally lit up in me. I'll help you, I promised. I've got a couch and Miles is cool. She smiled, a real, unforced smile, and we walked to the curb together where Miles's car was already idling. He'd circled the block 4 times, just like we'd planned. I climbed into the front seat. Lily gave me one last wave, then turned and walked back toward the chaos with her head held high, no longer the miracle baby, just a woman with a plan. "So?" Miles asked, his eyes wide as he shifted into gear. "How'd it go?" "I told the truth," I said, leaning my head back against the seat. "And they finally had to hear it." He nodded, pulled away from the curb, and we let the silence of the car settle in. But this wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of my childhood. This was clean. This was peace. That night, my phone buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. "Mom, I cannot believe you would do that at your brother's wedding. You have no heart. Do not call me. Jake, you're dead to me. Don't ever speak to me again, you jealous loser. Dad, I wish you hadn't done that in front of everyone, but I get it. Maybe we can talk. Just you and me." "No, Mom. No, Jake." I didn't reply to any of them. I wasn't angry anymore, and I didn't need the last word. I had already said it. Later that night, I uploaded a redacted version of the speech to my portfolio site under scriptwriting and narrative direction. No names, no photos. Just the raw, cinematic reality of a person claiming their own life. I'm Nate. I'm 22. And for the first time, I'm not the middle child. I'm the only one who matters in my story. I kept that small piece of my story tucked away on my portfolio site, a quiet, raw confession nestled between glossy video clips and corporate testimonials. It was my digital burn book, but instead of malice, it was filled with the heavy, unvarnished truth of a kid who had finally stopped apologizing for taking up oxygen. I didn't expect anyone to actually click on it, let alone feel the weight of those words, but the internet has a funny way of finding the things you try to hide in plain sight. Exactly 1 month after the wedding, 1 month of blissful, radio silence from the toxic group chat and the golden child drama, a notification popped up on my screen. It was from Claire. "Hey Nate," the message started. "This is going to sound weird, but someone forwarded me the link to your speech. The one on your portfolio? Wow. My heart did a nervous little somersault. I had spent 21 years being told that my feelings were dramatic or too much, and here was a professional client, a woman who built her life on curated aesthetics, reaching out about my most vulnerable moment. "I know it's deeply personal," Claire continued, the typing bubble dancing for a few seconds before the next block hit. "But would you ever consider doing more with it? Not just as a side note, but as a project. A short documentary, maybe a spoken word series about the invisible siblings? It's powerful, Nate. Like, gut-wrenchingly powerful. People need to hear this. You have a perspective that is missing from the conversation." I leaned back in Miles's creaky desk chair, the morning sun streaming through the window and hitting the dust motes in the air. For a long time, I just stared at the glowing blue text on the screen. My mind flashed back to that dark kitchen on my 21st birthday, the smell of the old fridge, the sight of that pathetic, half-eaten grocery store cake, and the crushing weight of a note that told me I wasn't worth the effort. I remembered the way my voice used to shake whenever I tried to ask for a seat at the table. But that version of Nate was a ghost now. The man sitting in this chair was someone who had stood in a backyard full of elite strangers and dismantled a decade of gaslighting with nothing but a microphone and the truth. I felt a slow, genuine smile spread across my face. The kind of smile that reaches your eyes because you finally realize the joke was never on you. I typed back a simple, confident "let's talk," and hit send. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I try to read as many as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.